And to kick that off is going to be James Wilhite from Index Exchange.
Thanks, Brad. All right, so we'll just jump right in here. And this is going to be the technical implementation portion of our journey. And one thing I want to call out here right away is that for all of our new formats, we wanted to make sure that we stuck with the standards that already exist, with fields that already exist. So this would be easy for people to implement. We wouldn't have breaking changes. Similar in vein to how we rolled out OpenRTB 2.6 in a way that people could implement as little or as much as they wanted. So I'm going to start off with pause and screensaver. One thing to call out here in particular is that we initially started this as just pause ads, but we realized that a screensaver event is a very similar ad experience for the end user and for the advertiser. So we wanted to make sure that we included both in the spec so that we have optionality both for publishers and for buyers on how they want these ads to be experienced. So first things I just want to call out quickly, we'll get into more details on the upcoming slides, but so we have our standard fields of placement, a 5 or 6 to differentiate between pause and screensaver. We have position of 7 or 8 to differentiate between the full screen or partial screen experience. We have the playback method, which is what initiated the actual event, and the audio status. We'll talk about the audio status in a second as well. And then the blocked attributes. What kind of creatives do we want to allow through from a publisher's perspective? And then finally, just to call out, we all aligned on the majority of these new formats being nonlinear VAST. This created an extension of nonlinear VAST that didn't used to accept media files, and we'll get into that change as well. But just to address this up front, because I've gotten many questions on it over the last 12 months, and I'm sure people are starting to ask questions about it in our chat box. We, as a working group, we're kind of stuck on moving forward and rolling things out as we were going back and forth between native and nonlinear VAST. And we aligned on nonlinear VAST because VAST is widely adopted already. MP4s are well known. And you can add in measurement, such as quartiles and other things, to make sure that you have the same experience for how an ad is being viewed as you would with in linear VAST events. So we'll keep going here. All right, so yellow here is pause ads, green is screensaver. On the left-hand side, we have the placement. So again, just 5 for pause ads and 6 for screensavers. And then we have playback methods on how it was initiated. So 8 and 9 are used for pause events. So was it initiated by the user pausing the content? Great, that's 8 or 9. And then sound on or off. So this sound on or off is going to, I'm sure, bring up a lot of questions. Also, we as a working group went back and forth on whether or not we should include this. And what we landed on is we didn't think that the spec should dictate it. It should be defined by the publishers on the experience that they want to have for their environment on any of these formats. So we wanted to make sure that we enabled it via the spec and didn't create a blocking event where somebody couldn't do something that they wanted to do. All right, next slide. The placement positions. So full screen, partial screen. So for pause ads and screensavers, a lot of you have seen the full screen event that happens with creatives, but some publishers were asking and have implemented something where maybe 2/3 of the screen is taken up with the pause ad and the rest is a blurred background to keep the context of where they are in the event and to make sure that they're aware that they're in a pause. So we have both available as, again, position 7 and 8. And then creative attributes that can be blocked for pause and screensaver ads. You can say that you don't want to see QR codes, that static visuals aren't allowed, that limited motion or cinemagraph, which I'll show you an example of soon, is not allowed, or full motion video, which is the ones that we're all familiar with, is also not allowed. So the publisher has the choice to determine what type of creative they want to allow on their platform. All right, so this is an example of a Cinemagraph bid request and bid response with all of these new values included. So in the bid request, we have the pause event. We see that it's in full screen. We see that sound is off, and we have blocked full motion creatives from coming through. On the bid response side, we see the handshake between the blocked attributes and the attributes that are passed. We now see that 19 and 22 are passed through. And just a note here, those are flipped in the definitions. The QR code is 19 and the limited motion is 22. But the attributes are that it has a QR code and it is limited motion. And then the markup type is going to be 2 for video here in the bid response. And then I'll draw your attention over to the vast nonlinear ads. Just to call out, this is not mandatory, but we've added the ability for extensions to be added so that transparency can be there in the vast. So the position 7 is mirrored from the bid request, and the extension for the attribute is 22, which wasn't one of the blocked attributes from the original bid request. And again, that's the limited motion. All right, so this was working before. This is an example of a Cinemagraph. No worries.
We tested. We promise.
We did test it. It's fine. So again, these are limited motion, and ideally you'd be able to see this, but the text all stays static. The image in the middle stays static, but the background has an animation to it. So that's what we mean by Cinemagraph and the limited motion, just so people have that in the future. All right, so now I'm going to go into overlays. So placement type 7 is for overlay. The positions they look a lot more complex with having 5 different ones here, but really this is just all 4 corners of the screen plus a footer, so not overly complex. Playback method is 1 or 2 for the sound being on or off. And then the blocked attributes we'll get into. There's one new one here that we want to talk about. And again, nonlinear vast. All right, so first of all, the placement type is 7, as I called out, and then the playback method is with or without audio. Again, this is up to the publisher's discretion on which one they want to allow. I imagine that we're going to see a lot of these with sound off, but both are enabled. All right, in the position, as I mentioned, you have the footer, and then you have all 4 corners, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And creative attributes, the one thing that's new here that we didn't see on Pause and Screensaver is number 20, which is supports alpha channel transparency. And what this does is that enables that kind of floating image effect that you've seen in an ad before, maybe if you've seen overlay ads. So it's not a rectangle that's showing up on the screen. It might be just an image that's floating there with the creative itself. The alpha channel is really what part of that creative is transparent and which part is not, so that the publisher knows what to do with it. All right, hey, this one works. All right, so this is a bottom right overlay example where you can imagine this sunset picture is actually the content you're watching, and then the overlay for the delicious McRib pops up on the bottom right and makes you hungry so that you can order from Uber Eats. All right, so what changed in VAST? So one of the biggest things that had to change, which is a great change in my opinion, is that media files are now required. So to get that MP4 into the VAST response, we needed to make sure that it had the same structure as an inline VAST response. So that's what's here. And then next is duration. So durations are optional depending on the type of creative that is being sent and whether or not you want to have any kind of time-based tracking. And then we added nonlinear tracking events for measurement. So if you wanted to prove that this was in view, it was in view for a certain amount of time, it reached all the quartiles, just like you would on a regular in-stream VAST event, then you have all of these available, which is huge, right? Like if you think of a pause event, they could go on for a long amount of time. They can loop. We have envisioned that they could be potted requests as well, so that you have multiple pause events strung together. So you'd want to see those impression events on those quartiles to know how many times that ad got in front of your users. All right, and then as we saw in the Cinematograph example, we have the extension block that matches AdCom, so you can put everything, all of the values to do the handshake between the bid request and the VAST response to make sure they're in alignment. All right, and then lastly, before I hand it off to Christian, this is something that Alex Sikowski, is that how you pronounce his name, Brad? I'm looking for a head nod.
Sikowski. Yes.
Sikowski, who's a member of the Advanced TV Working Group, put together as open source. So VastLint is really cool. I just started exploring this last week, and it's a way to implement VAST validation in your own platform. But he already added in all of the changes that are necessary for these formats. So all the documentation is here, all the checks are here. So if you wanted to start playing with this right away, get this tool, validate your VAST, and make sure that it's going to be supported on either side.
Yeah, and I
All
recommend
right.
anybody jumping in and contributing more too, because there's an extension upon that for a validation tool, like a web-based one, that is out there as well. So jump in, take a look, and contribute. So with that, I do want to segue to Christian, but before, I want to make sure that we encourage all of the attendees to kind of take a look at the Q&A box within the webinar, and go ahead and try to submit questions as you're coming up with them throughout. And then at the end, we will open up to be able to answer those. So thank you. And Christian, here you go.